Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all to the fourth lecture for the course of routing and switching. My name is Engineer Jafar Ali and I am instructor for this course. Let's start with the recapitulation of the previous lectures. In the first three lectures, we have studied about different topics starting from the architecture point of view, that what is the need of layer architecture in networking. And after that, we learned about OSI model, that what is Open System Interconnect Reference Model and why it was presented. After that, we learned that OSI model is not practically implemented, and we needed some model that should be practically implemented. And for that, there is another model that came up, that was TCP/IP model, and this model is not different as compared to OSI model, but it is a advanced form or modified form of OSI model actually. So we learned about the different practices that are involved in TCP/IP model. So in continuation to our TCP/IP model, we have to study Internet Protocol, that is IP, that is involved in TCP/IP actually. So for that we need to learn IP first. So today we will be learning about IP, that is Internet Protocol, that what is the need of Internet Protocol. Then we will look at Internet Protocol datagram, that what is IP datagram, and in the last we will discuss about the format for Internet Protocol. So you see that this is a generic diagram. You can see the application services are running over here, and after that there is a transport layer which is serving in TCP, and after that we need some network architecture over here, or network layer, which is in OSI model, but in TCP/IP model we call it IP layer. So in IP layer we are doing connectionless packet delivery service. We are providing connectionless packet delivery service. So this is the combination of the first three layers of TCP/IP model. You can see that this is your application layer. This is your first three layers of TCP/IP model. This is layer of the top layer, that is application layer. This is your transport layer, and this is your IP layer. So for that you need to learn about IP layer. If you want to work in TCP/IP model, you should have a clear knowledge of IP, that is Internet Protocol. So what does this IP basically do? Actually, IP provides a packet delivery service which is mostly unreliable, best effort service, and it is mostly connectionless. So you have to provide a delivery service actually, that should be delivering your packet from the source to the destination, and for that we need to have a IP model, and this is the model that is providing the same service between two ends. So it defines the basic unit for the data transfer, that what should be the basic unit by using which we can transfer our data. Uh, it also performs some routing functions. We will learn about this routing protocols in the coming lectures as well. So for now, one should keep it in mind that this is not a limited topic, it is a very vast topic. So we will be covering this in the coming lectures as well. And IP also includes a set of rules that embody the idea of unreliable packet delivery. You know that Internet Protocol is not a reliable packet delivery service. So for to implement the reliability, we have to follow some rules to make sure that our packet doesn't get corrupted or doesn't get lost. So that for that we need to have some set of rules that make sure that this unreliability doesn't affect our performance of the network. So moving swiftly on IP datagrams. IP datagrams are basic unit for the data transfer. And the datagram is basically the basic unit which we use for the data transfer. You can see that the physical network is presented over here. You can see the frame, and this is of a frame, and frame has some frame data, and it has a header on it. and in internet basically you have a datagram header and a datagram data. Again, by combining the header and the data, you call as just datagram. So datagram is basically combination of a datagram header and datagram data, and this is basically what we call as the internet. It has some headers and it has some data. Now, what is the format? We will be learning these parameters that are involved, and by combining which we can get several functionalities out of a single datagram format. So this is the combination of this is the first block is basically version, that which IP version you are using. This is the header length, basically that what is the length of the header of that packet. This is the header, so there should be some length or limit of the data over here, of the header over here. So for that we use this h length. This is representing the length of the header actually. The next block in IP datagram is actually service type, that which type of services you are using in your data. This is the total length of the data, that what is the total length of the data. It means that it is the combination of header as well as the data. This represents the total length. This total length is basically the combination of this header datagram header and datagram data. So by combining these two, you get the total length of the data that has header and the data as well. There are several other functionalities over here. Identification. There are several flags. You can use flags. You have learned about flags in microprocessor and micro computer courses as well. So there are several flags involved which are used in this IP datagram. Fragment offset is there. Time to live. This is the actually the important topic. That what is time to live actually. So you see, if you want to transmit a data, a packet, let's say, and this is your transmitter and this is your receiver, let's say this is your receiver, and you want to transfer a very secret or confidential file or a very private file to the receiver. So you want that this file should be reached at the destination using minimum intermediate nodes or intermediate links or bodies or entities. So let's say this packet has received over here, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 at the 12 hops. So it means there were 11 intermediate devices which were involved in the transmission of this packet. So now you think this is not suitable for you or not secure for you, so you put a time to live. So after if you want your data to be secure, you put a time to live, let's say 5. So what does it will do? After 5 hops, it will automatically discard the data. If the destination hasn't reached yet, so the node that will carrying this information right now will look at it that the time to live was 5 and it has reached 5, so it will discard the data. Similarly, there is another example of time to live. Let's say there is a transmitter. This is the transmitter, and it want to send some data to this receiver. Let's say this is the same receiver, but the receiver is too far, and the transmitter is trying to find a route, to find the path to the receiver, but it is not finding the path. So the packet will be bouncing to and fro towards different positions. So it will create a mess, it will create a congestion, it will create load on the server as well. So server do not want this load to be carried for a long time. So it will also make sure that you have normally the time to live is 256. This can be changed by actually server as well. So after some time this data will be deleted, because server doesn't want to carry this load which is routing here and forth to find the route. So this will make a congestion on the network. So for that, network doesn't want to carry unnecessary load, so it will automatically delete the data after some time. And what is this that time? That time is basically time to live. So this was time to live. So there are several protocols involved, and these protocols include the property or the protocols that are involved while transmitting this datagram packet. Similarly, there is a header checksum if you want to have some error parities and error correction or detection parities. You can use header checksum over here. The main important points are basically source IP address and the destination IP address. It should be mentioned over the datagram that what is the source from where the packet is coming, the address of the transmitter, and this is your destination address, that where do you want your packet to be delivered. So that is your destination address, destination IP address actually. There are several other options and we will discuss each of them in the following slides as well. There are several IP options. You can use IP options, and in the last of the datagram there is a header, there is a data. So you see that this is the header and this is the data. In the last two lines there will be a chunk of data that will be placed over, and combining this total forms the IP datagram. Let me show you. So this is your header that carries several information, and this is your data, and by combining these two you get a total datagram, IP datagram. This is datagram header and this is datagram data, and by if you combine both of these you can get the IP datagram as a whole. So now moving swiftly on IP datagram encapsulation. You know that encapsulation is when you embed or merge a smaller file into a bigger file. So let encapsulates the IP datagram. So a datagram must move to the from a machine or physical networks, and for that you need to put your datagram into a frame, that is the lower layer, that physical layer. So you have to embed your datagram into a frame data. But let's say, what if the datagram won't fit it in a frame? Let's say that the data is actually the datagram is actually bigger than the frame data. So what it will do? So let's see how does we tackle this scenario. So for that we need a component or a terminology that is known as maximum transfer unit or MTU. Each physical networking technology limits the amount of data that can fit in a frame. So you have to limit the data in that can be easily fitted into a frame. And for normally Ethernet services you can use 1500 octets. Octet means 8, and for FDDI you can use and for FDDI you can use 4470 octets. This is called the network MTU, that the network has decided that you will follow, your data will have to be divided into how much amount of frames, and so that it can be easily fitted into a frame. So limiting datagrams to fit in a smallest possible MTU would make traveling across the networks with a larger MTU, and that makes it inefficient. So if you divide your datagram packets into very smallest MTUs or frames, so it will also make a mess, because it will be a very large number of MTU, and that will affect the performance of the network actually. So you have to come with the optimum number, not so much less and not so much bigger. You have to go somewhere in the middle. Similarly, if your datagram is too much large, it won't be fit in a single frame. So that will also make a mess, and your some of the data will be lost while you are embedding that datagram into the frame. So these two lines are actually very important. The size of the datagram should not be that much low, that it should be creating a large number of MTUs, and it should not be very less actually, so that when you embed the data gram into a frame, your data doesn't gets lost. So that's why it is very important to pick a size of a datagram before fitting it to a frame. And this is basically we call as fragmentation. This is basically the fragmentations. We are dividing the datagrams that are too large. And why do we divide it to that? So that it could be embedded or merged in a frame, in one frame actually. So that, and these frames now we are calling them as fragments. So what we are doing in datagram fragmentation, we are actually dividing the large datagrams in small pieces, but not too small, but in that capacity that it should be fitted in a one single frame. And thus then these single frame or these single pieces is known as a fragment, and the combination of these pieces are known as fragments. So fragments are the division of the datagram. Now each fragment should fit into one frame. You have your this is your datagram. So this is your datagram. You have to divide that datagram into a small fragments, and then that fragments will be embedded into the frames. Actually, this datagram is not embedded into a frame directly. It has to be embedded first into a fragment, and then these fragments will be these are the fragments, and that then these fragments will be embedded into the frame, which should be larger than the fragment. So you see that it should be embedded in this, and this fragment should be embedded in the frame. And we have to actually transport these fragments over the physical network, and at the receiving end we have to reassemble these fragments as well, so that we can get the complete datagram. Now there is an example. You see that there is a big file of 4000 octets. There are large data, and there is some header of datagram. So this is your the first diagram. This is your datagram. This is your complete datagram, which has some header and it has some data. But the amount of this data is too much larger. So we divide the 4000 into three portions. That is 1480, 1480, and 1040. So after we have divided, we are converting it to a fragments. So this is the fragment 1 header, this is your fragment 2 header, this is your fragment 3 header. So you have actually divided the big datagram. This is your big datagram. You have actually divided the big datagram into three small fragments actually, and these fragments will be very much easier to be embedded into a frame, because the size of the data has been reduced immensely. You can see that 4000 has become 1480 now, and you can easily fit this size of data into a frame. So fragment headers duplicate datagram header except for flag field. These headers should be the same header, but except from the flag field. And the sequence flags means that this flags basically show that the sequence, what is the sequence of the data or the packet or the fragment. Is it the first one, is it the last one, or not? So these the flags of these data fragments will be same, exact duplicate, but the only difference in between them will be the flags. Now you see there are several flags that you can use actually in your you have used in IP, that is your DNF, your fragmentation MF. There are different several other flags that we will be discussing in the coming slides as well. So let's wait. So what are the reassembly of fragments? When you divide the data into fragments on the transmission end side, you have to reassemble them that on the receiving end side. But should these fragments be reassembled after crossing one network to or should we wait until the fragments arrive their final destination to reassemble them? So this question, I have asked you this question, that there are you have two options. You have transmitted the data after dividing it into different small segments. So there are two options to you, with you. You have, this is your destination, and let's say this destination is in some other network. This is another network, and there is the router or gateway from which this packet has been coming, entering into this network and going towards its destination. So you have two options: either you can reassemble the data over here, or you can reassemble the data over here. So this is the question for you. Let's think over it, and in the class you have to answer me that which technique is best for reassembling the data. Either we have to reassemble the data over here after it has entered into a network. It has actually crossed one network, and it has come after passing this gateway, and it has come over here. So you have two options. Now I repeat again: either you have to reassemble your data over here, or you can reassemble your data on the destination. So which one is best? You can use both of these techniques, but let's discuss and let's think over it. I will be giving you my own comments and opinions that which technique is much better. Both can be done, but one of them is more beneficial for us as compared to another. So we will be discussing this in class. So make sure you come up with a good answer as well. Now there are several options that are placed in IP datacom. You can see that there is field of IP options over here. There is the IP options over here. Now what are these IP options? These are used for the network testing and debugging. So these IP options you will be using for your troubleshooting, your some identification purposes, for testing purposes. And what is the let's discuss it further. This variable length field, depending on what options you are selected. So you have actually this on IP datagram options are divided into seven different fields. The first field is for copy. That is the first copy, is the second copy. This is a class, and this is the option number. So there are four classes actually: 0, 1, class 1, class 2, and class 3. So the first class is basically a datagram or network control, for the network control. The first and the third are basically reserved for the future use, and the fourth one is actually for debugging and measurements. You are monitoring over here in the class 2. So in the class 0 you have end of option list. You can use no operation. You can add some, if you want to add some security features, you can use that in this class as well. You can use place the class number 2 actually. Similarly, if you want to lose source routing, you have to record your route. If you want, you have routing, your packet is routing from one end to another, and you want to record that routing, you can use it as class 7 actually, class 0 and option number 7. And similarly, if you want to the stream the identifier, you can use that, and there are several other options you can use for your datagram, internet datagram. And in class 2 actually you are only left with internet timestamp, and this is very important. Most of the datagram packets actually use timestamp to make sure that to maintain the log actually, that the packet was arrived at which time, the packet was divided at which time, and all the information is carried in this internet timestamp. So the very important option that is another one, that is the route record route option. So source create an empty list of IP addresses in the header, and after that it set the record of the route option, and after the datagram if the datagram passes to another router or another body, it records the IP address of that body, and it embeds that IP address into its empty list. Let's say this is your transmitter and this is your receiver, and there are, let's say, two routers. This is router 1 and this is router 2. So if you transmit the datagram from here, Uh, and in this datagram, and if you have placed the record route option on, means you have set means you have equal to 1, you have given the value of 1 in the record route option, so it will be creating a empty list. Now if the datagram will pass through this router R1, it will embed the IP address of this router R1 into its empty list, so that it will be next time it will be easier for it to go from the same route. If it is coming from the same route as a feedback, as a reply, it will be coming, it will know that from which router I have to pass. It will know the its path actually, so it will be easier for it for monitoring purpose or for future use. And if the datagram passes from this router R2, it will embed the IP address of this as well. This is known as concatenation. This is known as concatenation. Sorry for the spelling. Concatenation. Concatenation means to embed a list one by one in the series or in cascade form. You have there is empty list for that options IP datagram, and it will embed the first over here and it will embed the second IP over here. Similarly, if the datagram pass through multiple routers or bodies, it will record or it will concatenate the IP address of that body into this list, unless and until it reaches the destination. So this is your record route option for your IP datagram. Now what is source route options? Sender dictates in this option, actually the sender is dictating the path through the internet over which the datagram must travel. So you are focusing, or you are complying your datagram packet to be followed, to be passed through a specific router. If you want to your datagram to be passed to a specific router, you can basically give it the option that is from source route option. So it in this kind of option, you are actually if you are sender, you can dictate the path. You will dictate the path that go from this route and go from this route. And sender list the IP addresses in order to keep the route, to keep the record as well. And you have to set the source route option. Set means you have to enable it. You have to enable the source route option, and after that if you haven't basically set it the value of source route option and you are giving the direction, it will not follow your direction. It will go in its own direction by its own protocol that it is following. But if you want this datagram to follow your path actually, so you have to set this option first. After that it will be following your path as a result. So there are two types of source route option. The first one is strict source routing, and the another one is loose source routing. In the strict source routing, the path between two successive addresses in the list must consist of a single physical network. There should be a single physical network between two devices or two successive addresses between two routers. Let's say this is router R1 and this is your router R2. So there should be a single physical network between them. This is known as strict source routing. And in the loose source routing, the datagram must follow the sequence of the IP addresses in the list. Let's say you have given the list to the datagram, and the list contains IP addresses. So it will follow the IP addresses one by one. It will go towards first IP address, after it will go to second, it will go to third, and similarly it will go to the destination. You have to provide all the IP addresses in the list actually, and it can allow multiple networks hops between two successive addresses on the list. So you can obviously jump from one IP address to another IP address, and let's say this IP address is on another network. So this is known as loose source routing, because you are involving different networks, multiple networks in this kind of routing. So this is known as loose source routing. The timestamp option is very much of importance. In this option, the sender actually creates an empty list in the header, and it enables. Obviously, it has to enable the timestamp option. I am telling you again and again that if you want to use any option, you have to first enable it. So before using it, you have to enable it. So after you have enabled it, you can create an empty list in the header, and each router that handles the datagram appends to the list. And what does it depends or concatenate? It has to embed or appends IP address and local timestamp. That what is the time that this datagram has entered this IP address. So it is basically, I have told you, this is the log. Actually, in the earlier slides I have already told you that these timestamps are mostly used for monitoring purposes, or to maintain a log, to monitor some datagram, that where is my datagram for now at this current time. So you can easily use this time stamp option for monitoring purposes, to keep a track on your datagram.
So this topic is not completed yet. We will carry on with this topic in another class, inshallah, in the second part actually. So I will recommend you to also watch the second part of this lecture, so that you will be able to understand the whole scenario of the IP addressing. Thank you very much. I see you in the next part.